I'm Andrew Bennie. I'm the Director of Recruitment Services for Springer Publishing Company and Minority Nurse Magazine. We're proud to present today's webinar as we continue our nurse recruitment series on how to best assess and approach your recruitment strategy to recruit diverse nurses. And today we're very happy to be joined by Dr. Sandra Davis. Dr. Davis is the Associate Professor and Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the School of Nursing at the George Washington University. At the beginning of 2017, Dr. Davis co-led an advisory council charged to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion at the school before being appointed to a newly created assistant role later that year. Previously, she was the director of the Adult Gerontology Primary Care Nurse Practitioner Program before stepping down to focus on diversity issues. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Dr. Davis, but first we'll jump to the webinar agenda for today. We're basically going to cover, look at the overview of the nursing workforce and market, really discuss how to assess whether you're creating an inclusive environment within your institution. And we'll go through a couple proven recruitment strategies that have worked. First touching on sort of offline activities, and then really going into the digital strategies that work in terms of recruitment for diverse candidates. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Dr. Davis.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you for that introduction, and good afternoon and welcome. I am really delighted to have this opportunity to be with you on this Friday afternoon to discuss such an important topic and to talk about the importance of recruiting a diverse workforce. Increasing diversity in the United States population, persistent disparities in health and healthcare, and underrepresentation of certain racial and ethnic groups are all driving the need to promote diversity in schools of nursing. If you could go back for a moment, Andrew, to the previous slide. There's an urgent need to prepare students to care for an increasingly diverse population in the United States and to take on some of the most pressing and avoidable challenges related to disparities and inequities in health and healthcare. One of the overarching goals of Healthy People 2020 is health equity, or the attainment of the highest level of health for all people. A diverse nursing workforce is essential for progress toward health equity in the United States. Nursing leaders are recognizing the need to increase diversity and to attract students from underrepresented groups in nursing, specifically nurses from African American, Latinx, Asian, Native American, and Alaskan Native backgrounds, and also men. And if we go to the next slide, on this side, if we look at the demographic composition of the United States workforce over 8 years from 2009 to 2017, we see that diversity in nursing is increasing. However, there is a qualifier. It's increasing gradually, because if we take a closer analysis of the data, we can see that gains are really only modest. Even though we may be graduating higher numbers of students from underrepresented groups, the overall percentage for the entire profession rises slowly due to the size, that 3.6 million. So we're not where we need to be. We need to do more. Next slide, please. So looking at this slide, we see that about 9.1, approximately 9% of our nurses are male, and nurses from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups make up about 19% of nursing. Increasing racial and ethnic diversity in the nursing workforce is important because it's one, linked to improved access to care for racial and ethnic underrepresented patients, and it's linked to greater patient choice and satisfaction. And then we know that we have better patient-provider communication, and it's also been shown that all of our students get a better educational experience. Next slide. Ensuring a national nursing workforce that is representative of the communities being served will help to facilitate the delivery of effective, high-quality patient care. patient-centered care, I should say. In fact, evidence suggests that racially, ethnically, and socioeconomically diverse healthcare providers are likely to practice in communities with similar populations, thus improving access and quality of healthcare in those communities. This slide is from the Future of Nursing Campaign for Action, and it depicts the demographic composition of the United States compared to that of RN pre-licensure graduates. And this slide clearly illustrates how much work needs to be done to create a nursing workforce that reflects America's changing population. And if you go to the Future of Nursing to the Campaign for Action website, you'll find these charts for all 50 states and for the District of Columbia, and you'll be able to see the demographic makeup of your own particular state and then compare that to the demographic composition of your own pre-licensure RN graduates in your state. Okay, next slide. Okay, so diversity is fundamental to excellence in nursing, and inclusive excellence is essential. Studies have shown that diverse educational and organizational settings yield greater innovation and creativity, greater critical thinking, and greater overall productivity. However, before we talk about recruitment and bringing diversity into schools and into our organizations, we need to talk about the environment. And so, what is the culture and the climate in our organizations and in our schools of nursing? Have we created an organizational culture that supports diversity? Have we worked to create and maintain inclusive and equitable environments where all people can be themselves, where they can be their authentic best selves, and places where people feel valued and they feel that sense of supportive collective energy to thrive and to do their best work? So those are the questions we need to ask. We need to look at ourselves and look at our environments. And then another very important question is demographically, how do our organizations look? For example, in academic settings, do we have diverse role models and mentors? Who in our organizations are in leadership positions? And who is getting promoted? Is there pay equity? These are all questions that we need to ask. And when it comes to education, what and how are we teaching our nursing students? What is our worldview? What's our perspective? Do our readings and assignments include diverse authors and diverse perspectives? Are we teaching about social determinants of health, health disparities, inequities in health and healthcare? And so if we are, we should be talking about race, racism, power, and privilege. In our classrooms, are we using inclusive language? Do we have education and training on topics and issues such as implicit bias, LGBTQ inclusive healthcare? All of those things we need to examine when we talk about increasing diversity. And then when we do have diverse students, what's the student experience? And what if our students experience lateral violence, bullying, bias? What support do we have in place? What systems of support do we have in place for our students? What type of researchers do we have in our organizations, and what type of research is being done? These are all questions that we must ask. At the GW School of Nursing, we started our diversity initiative about 2 years ago, and our dean formed an advisory council, and the council was charged with creating a diversity mission statement, a strategic plan for diversity, and also an evaluation plan. And so in our strategic plan, we have 4 broad pillars: recruitment and retention, we have leadership and accountability, culture transformation, all those things that I was talking about, and then focusing on other things that I was talking about: education, scholarship, research, teaching, and service. And also, what's important is that our diversity strategic plan is now a part of our overall strategic plan, our 2018-2021 strategic plan. So diversity is core, it's central to the business and the operations of the school. It's not an add-on, it's not an adjunct, but it's an essential core of what we do. And that's all important to prepare the environment. And so also, I always say that two essential skills that every student in higher education must have and must learn to survive in an increasingly diverse world are: one, the ability to work collaboratively in teams across cultures, and then two, the ability to communicate effectively and respectfully with people from diverse backgrounds. And so all of these things our students should be getting um, when they are with us, and to prepare them to go out. Okay, so the next slide. Let's talk about now some of our recruitment strategies. Okay, so one of the first things that is needed is to start early, to increase awareness of the profession at the high school and even the middle school level. I would even say, go to the middle school level. For example, I was the PI, and funded a, I was on a funded project where I worked with middle school students in the DC area, and also our ABSN students were part of the project. It was a participatory action photo voice project, and it was all around social determinants of health and a heart healthy community. And so our ABSN students were the teachers for the middle school students. They learned all about heart health. They received digital cameras. They took pictures of their communities. So these are the things that we can do to really engage students at a very early level. We can hook in our students, our researchers, our faculty, to really get to for students to see who we are, the possibilities in nursing, the opportunities in nursing, and what we do. Also, there are high school academic enrichment and success programs for underrepresented students. Um, we can go to the high schools and the middle schools and talk about careers and opportunities in nursing. And in doing that, we talk about the importance of doing well in science and math, talk about the rigor of a nursing program, and then what has to be done to prepare for a career in nursing. Students, as I said, in community health, they can go out to schools, and while they are doing teaching, students are absorbing a lot of who nursing is and what nursing does. And so students are wonderful role models for our students on the middle school and high school levels. We can also host students on our campuses. For example, this is the picture where we host students during the summer. We take them to the sim lab. We let them experience what it's like to take care of a patient. And we also we encourage community engagement and service learning projects for our students. We partner with the other schools. For example, we partner with the medical school to participate in their summer pipeline program, to introduce underrepresented high school students to all of the health professions careers. So these are some of the things that can be done, to starting early and to increase the pipeline early into the nursing profession. Next slide. Another strategy is holistic admissions, where you're looking to see what unique strengths and accomplishment the students bring, in addition to grades and test scores. Holistic admission practices consider a wide range of factors that really reflect the applicant's readiness. It looks at their contribution overall to the incoming class and their potential for success, not only in school, but also as a professional. And so with the holistic admissions practices, they're linked to usually the institution's mission and values, and holistic practices look at the school's educational outcomes and also workforce outcomes. And there is data to support holistic admission practices. The Urban Universities for Health did a study in 2014, and it provides clear evidence to support the use of holistic admissions practices in the health professions. Data from the study provides a strong rationale for specific strategies that universities and health professions schools might use to pursue to improve their admissions processes and also to increase student diversity and success, and to create a learning environment where all students from all backgrounds can thrive and do well. And also, the AACN, the American Association for Colleges of Nursing, offers holistic admissions review workshops. And so that is offered for those who are interested in attending workshops or sessions to learn more about holistic admissions. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of water, just a second. Okay, so we have to be very intentional about our recruitment efforts, and very selective in the conferences, and so where do we want to go to recruit? For example, are we recruiting at specific conferences such as the Black Nurses Association, just to name a few, Hispanic Nurses Association, Men in Nursing? So look at your overall agenda for the whole year, and then see where exactly do you want to go, and where do you want to focus your recruiting efforts? And also establish partnerships with healthcare organizations. And our schools can partner with hospitals for an RN to BSN program. And so go to the healthcare organizations. And then if you do establish those partnerships between the academic, between the school and the hospital, for example, for nurses to advance and advance on a career ladder, advertise about it. Advertise in the lobby with a booth, do lunch and learn sessions, and then make sure that when you're there, you have people who are on both sides, from academe and also from the hospital side, who are very knowledgeable about the programs. So students can really learn how many credits. Usually the hospital pays the tuition, and then in return, you'll have to give maybe 2 or 3 year commitment after graduation, but also have the hospital administrators there who can really give very specific information about this partnership. And then when we go out with our students to the practice sites, speak with nurses who are employed at those practice sites, because a lot of times these are the nurses who are interested in going back to school or going to school or advancing in nursing and getting higher degrees. So these are some other recruitment strategies that we can use. Next slide. Partnerships and early admissions are very important. For example, dual admissions partnerships between community colleges and four-year colleges. Also, partnerships between public and private institutions. Those are partnerships that are available, and students can complete their BSN, can work on their BSN while completing their ADN. So we are streamlining their programs, and making it more easy and accessible in order to get out into the profession and start working. Another strategy is for those students who are in the accelerated BSN programs. We can always do early admissions. There could be an early admissions process where they're already admitted into their graduate programs, nurse practitioner programs, um, master's degree programs, DNP programs, where they're already admitted before they graduate. And so that's another way of increasing diversity in nursing. And also, of course, our RN to MSN programs. Okay, next slide. Okay. So over the past two decades, several critical reports have been released that promote diversity in healthcare and the healthcare workforce. and to increase the education of underrepresented groups. And so these reports that have come out, and just to name a few, for example, if we go all the way back to 2002, there was unequal treatment, and then the IOM's Future of Nursing in 2011, and then HRSA's 2017 report on race and ethnic diversity in U.S. health occupations. All of these reports um, inform uh, data and trends and progress. And so the data from these reports really have been the impetus for many of the programs and the funding sources that are now available for students and for nurses. And when we talk about financial aid, there are, of course, grants, scholarships, loans, work studies, study programs, but also there are fellowships and residency programs for students after they finish and before they start in the nursing workforce. There are career ladder programs through organizations and also loan forgiveness programs. And so I want to go back and talk about in our schools of nursing and even before our students are admitted and when our students are admitted, we have to be sure that we have financial aid officers or officials or representatives who are aware of nursing specific resources for funding and for funding sources. And a lot of times students in our programs, when they do run into trouble or they do need extra financial assistance, they often first go to their faculty or to their academic advisors. And so we have to be sure that our faculty and our academic advisors know where uh, to direct our students. You know, we can't just say, oh, there are loans out there, oh, there are programs out there, oh, go on the web and look and search for programs. There's search for scholarships. There's scholarships out there. We really have to have information that is available, that students can look and put their hands on, and that they can go through. And they need to be able to sit down with a counselor or with a representative to really explore these opportunities, because there are scholarships that are available from foundations and from organizations, and there are specific scholarships for specific populations, and we need to sit down with our students and to be able to direct them and to tell them what's available in terms of funding. Um, Loan and excuse me, if you could go back for a moment, I just wanted to talk about the loan forgiveness programs. The Nurse Corps program offers loan repayment programs and scholarship opportunities in exchange for service in underserved communities. And so students would commit to working for at least 2 years in underserved areas. New graduate residency programs are available for students, and also loan repayment, loan forgiveness programs are available. And so we should have all of this information as part of a financial aid discussion when students come and talk to us. I find that a lot of times students don't know, and we have to be that resource for our students. Next slide. And so, word of mouth. This is huge because a lot of times you'll find that students say, oh, I came here because I know a graduate, and the graduate had a very good experience. And he or she, this person told me to apply. And so, or they told me to apply. And so, word of mouth is everything. And student experience. What experience are our students having when they're with us? And also, alumni relations. It's really important that when our students are with us, that we really talk to them and our development office and our alumni relations offices talk to students because we want them involved as alum. We really want our students to come back and get involved. And so we have to be sure that when they're with us, our students are being cared for, that they're respected, they're valued, they have a good experience. And when they get out, they may even give back monetarily. Students in some cases feel as if, you know, this was very difficult for me. I had such a hard time, but I did it, and I want to make it easier for someone else. And so we want to make sure that we're cultivating relationships with our students while they are with us. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now this is where I am going to um, hand off the mic to Andrew.
Yep, thank you, Dr. Davis. So I'm briefly going to just discuss a couple digital recruitment strategies that have worked here at Springer and Minority Nurse Magazine, and this is really focused on engagement. I don't think it's too surprising. 90% of adults between 18 and 29 are on social media. So where this audience is, you should potentially be too. So I just wanted to encourage you that when you're looking for or devising a social media strategy, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. It's the given is being there. So having a Facebook page, having a handle on Twitter or Instagram. But the key metric that I think you should consider, especially when creating an inclusive environment, is engagement. So is it a matter of just posting a press release or having your blog feed go to these sites, or is it really having a dialogue and creating communication, or just basically creating a comfortable place for candidates to speak to you about what it's like to either enroll or to to start at a hospital system and work in that environment. So I think it's really important to think of it in that manner. And I guess when we work with a lot of universities and hospitals, we see that there are a lot of standards for communicating on these platforms. And in creating that sort of inclusive environment, it's very difficult to sort of leave the talking point about the school or the hospital system or your employer about what makes it unique for that candidate. And it's important just to create that sense of authenticity when you can to really communicate with potential candidates. Another area that is quite important as well is targeted advertising or display advertising. There's something called retargeting or remarketing. And I would, if you don't know, you can definitely look it up. But essentially, it means reaching out to candidates who've already engaged with you on a specific digital platform. So an example of if you send an email or a message to a candidate, and that candidate express interest. It's about reaching them at a different on a different platform, whether it's social media or on the web or an email again through a nurture email, so that they're engaged with you in a different manner. Because oftentimes a candidate's first touch point with you is not going to be overwhelming. That's more about branding and recognition. So it's important just to create that digital dialogue with that candidate over time. And that's often achieved through diversity recruitment, through really focused publications, associations, and student groups. So there's a great organization called the National Coalition of Ethnic Minority Associations, a very long acronym, but they represent a lot of different minority and underrepresented organizations for nurses, for the American Assembly for Men in Nursing, NBNA, the National Black Nurses Association, as well as others. So I would definitely check that out because you can see the events coming up, the webinars they're hosting, and just thinking of creative ways that you can engage and be involved with these organizations to reach potential candidates. Additionally, just in terms of creating that digital dialogue, you can reach out through content marketing. So it's really tough. It's when you're representing your association, institution, or university or hospital system, you're really trying to sell your institution to that candidate about why it's inclusive, why they should embrace that potential environment. and why they should choose you over a number of other institutions. So a good way to do that is through content marketing, because content marketing is a way of having a blog post or a piece of content that really connects with that community. And when thinking of content marketing, whether it's a blog post or a podcast, one thing to keep in mind to create sort of inclusive brand marketing is being authentic. So it's really important to focus on whenever doing a video or podcast to really talk, maybe even do a series on candidates who've been successful or diverse candidates who've been successful in your inclusive environment, just so that really speaks to how they can potentially envision themselves within your institution. Another thing I mentioned before are nurture emails to these targeted communities. So can you use content marketing to really develop that digital dialogue and relationship to these communities? It's not unlike offline or just real life, just developing a relationship with your partner or a friend. It's really just creating that dialogue so they have an understanding of what is it like to be in this environment, especially if they're going to spend so much time in that institution. They want to make sure they're dedicating that to something that they truly believe will be a comfortable environment for them. And lastly, one thing that we're doing today is just it's organizing online events. So since it's very tough for nurses to get away from school, really just looking at how do you grow the diverse lead list and in terms of uh, just working from your office. And one thing we're doing is we're creating online open houses and online career fairs for hospital systems, just to make sure that you can create lead lists of diverse candidates and really talk to them through chat, through video interviews, through pre-enrollment for universities, just to get a sense of how do I actually promote myself and brand my institution as a place that's inclusive. So that's certainly something to consider, and it's something we've been doing for about 3 years now, but it's definitely led to just creating that digital dialogue that I mentioned before. So just to close, we just wanted to answer a few questions. Dr. Davis, I'll open it up to you. I think we have a couple that have been waiting. Um, so this is from Charlie. How can you measure the effectiveness of diversity-focused publications compared to the big tools like Glassdoor, LinkedIn, or Indeed? How can an employer know that candidates will go to the diversity publication instead of just Googling jobs or going through Indeed to find a job? So I guess I'll answer that, Dr. Davis, since that's focused on digital. So there are ways to make sure that, so there's without getting too technical, there's a schema or for job for job postings and job boards that are used across Glassdoor, Google Jobs, most career sites. So if you look into whether if you do one Google search for a job or for your institution, you should be able to see it on Google and see all other job boards where that lives. So most people do go to Google, but when they do go to Google to search for jobs or search for opportunities or even search for schools, they'll often see the source of where it's coming from. So the job could have been posted on an Indeed or a LinkedIn or a Minority Nurse. So that's important. Measuring the effectiveness in clicks, applies, and knowing really what your conversion is. So it's a lot of the hiring and the recruitment is lost after the actual click in the application, but it's a matter of understanding your funnel. So how many candidates after they've completed a form on a university site actually enroll in an institution, or how many candidates after clicking a link or going or getting a certain impression number from this publication leads to an interview. So it's a matter of understanding that funnel and the metrics on the ATS and the enrollment side to sort of better get a picture of publications. Another thing you can do is using attribution tools. There's a number of digital attribution tools that tell you who what site or what publication led to this impression. So I would look into those as a way to sort of track all of your publications across your digital advertising. And thank you, Charlie, for that follow-up. So I think that's all we have. Do we have any more questions? We can, great. I think we're good, Dr. Davis. So, but thank you all for joining us today. Uh, We are happy to continue this recruitment series moving forward through the fall. So we're happy that you joined us today. But thanks again for making time with us on this Friday.
Yes, thank you very much.